Hey everyone, Luke Ruth here. You tired of using your Livescope or you don't have forward-facing sonar? Today we're going to talk about how you can still compete in the springtime. We're going to make a river run. Let's talk about what baits we're going to throw, where we're going to go throw it, and how we're going to do it. Let's get into this.
Searching for greatness in a sea of the dying and shameless, a sea of the aimless. I don't wanna be one of the nameless. I'ma wake up with the mindset that one day I'm gonna make it, and I don't think I'll be fine if I don't break my limitations. Don't try to stop me, I exist to write my own story. I'll make a decision if I want some peace or if I want the glory, yeah.
Now, a lot of times when I'm talking about a spring river run, I'm thinking dirty water, shallow bass, warming water. That's your biggest key right there, warming water. I've caught a lot of bass up the river beginning middle to the end of February. As soon as that water starts to warm, that water's either froze or it's really, really cold up there right now. It's 37, 36, 35 degrees. As soon as that water seems to hit 40 to 42, we can start to take some lures, go up there, and we can really start to catch some of those first fish that are moving up. The water warms up quicker up there. It doesn't take as many warm days. You think you catch 3 days in a row in the 60s. Here, end of February, 1st of March, those bass are going to start moving shallow. If you get a cold front that comes in, it doesn't seem to affect them as fast. They've kind of moved up. They've kind of committed to the banks. Before forward-facing sonar, that was the way we fished a lot. We ran up the river. We made the river run. We did a lot of shallow fishing, spinnerbait fishing, jig fishing. I still love to do it. It's harder to compete, but if you don't have forward-facing sonar, it's your best option to compete in tournaments in the springtime. We're going to talk about what kind of jigs I throw, where we're going to throw them, what kind of spinner baits I like to throw. We're going to go over kind of everything I like to throw up the river in the springtime. I'm going to keep it pretty simple. We're going to have 3 or 4 lures. We're going to make those work wherever we're fishing where there's some stained dirty water up the river. So let's start talking about the lures we're going to use, and then we're going to get into an avionics breakdown of where I like to go fishing up the river. Let's talk about that bait I'm going to first throw when I'm going up the river. That water temp's 39 to 43. It's really, really cold. We've just caught 5 or 6 sunny days in a row, and that's going to be the jig. This is a motion fishing flash mop jig. I've trimmed down the skirt, put a beaver, Tackle HD Texas beaver on behind it. Really small profile, really going to fish this thing slow, guys. There's lots of bank cover to flip to. And on a really warm sunny day, they will get up on the bank, but a lot of times you're going to catch your fish dragging this jig out on that cover. You can't see, even if it's in 3 to 5, 6 foot of water, dragging it really, really slow out. I can't preach enough how slow you have to fish a jig. It's a very, very patient way to fish, but you can be rewarded. Had lots of 18-pound plus days up the river. You just got to know where the fish are at and fish them real, real slow. The jig's my first go-to just because it can be fished so slow in the cold water. I got 3 or 4 different colors I like. I love the motion fishing finesse jig. They're out underneath the boat, underneath the tarp. It's about always mow crawl or black and blue. This is brown and green right here, or it's going to be black and blue, depending on the watercolor. If I get that, 1.5 to 3 foot, I'm going to lean towards more of the brown and the mow crawl. If it gets dirtier than that, it's going to be black and blue all the way with a sapphire blue, with a sapphire blue Texas crawl or sapphire blue chunk. Something really bright those fish can pick up on, because that water's so dirty, they're going to have a hard time seeing your bait. So you can't go wrong. Keep 3 colors, mow crawl, brown, and black and blue. You're going to be covered for your spring river run jig fishing. Like the flash mop, because the flash mop makes a little bit bigger profile. Once it sits on the bottom, the rubber sits there and undulates. I feel like the fish might look at it a little bit. You pull up next to a log, they might come over, check it out. So you're going to be fishing this jig really, really slow. I don't feel like it hurts you to have the living rubber on when you're making the river run. Caught a lot on silicone also, just plain motion fishing finesse jig with a beaver on it. That's kind of my go-to. I don't want a trailer that's got a lot of action, so T-Craw does great. It's not going to give me a lot of action. It's going to be a flat profile in the water. I won't even break the pinchers apart a lot of times. So keeping your bait simple. Don't let them have a ton of action. First thing in the year, it's going to be key to getting some bites. All right, when that water's been warm for a while, I like to try to use the Ozark Flash spinnerbait. We're talking the water's in the high 40s, low 50s. It's a great time to pick up the Ozark Flash and throw the Ozark Flash. Half ounce trophy bass Ozark Flash spinnerbait. You can get them over at TackleHD.com. This is one of the most versatile spinnerbaits on the market. Painted blades, a lot different than other people are throwing. This thing has a different kind of wire. It throws a really, really good vibration. We're just going to slow roll this, guys. We're gonna make short roll casts to the bank, to every log, every stick, every rock sticking out we can see. we're going to fish the spinnerbait really, really slow. The spinnerbait works great in water clarity, a foot to 3 foot. Love to throw the spinnerbait in, but if you get some really, really dirty water, 3 inches to 1 foot, I like to go to the single Colorado, either a half or 3/4 ounce single spin Colorado blade or a tandem Colorado blade. It just really allows you to keep that bait up higher in the water column, working a lot slower. You don't get it down the logs near as much. You can really feel the thump, 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 thump when you're rolling this thing by logs. That's what's going to attract those bass out from underneath those logs and get you some bites. I keep my colors pretty simple. You see this one's chartreuse and blue, chartreuse and white. I keep it chartreuse and something, so that's what I've had the most luck on making a river run. Just keep it simple, keep some bright skirting on your spinner baits. A lot of people ask if I throw swim baits. I like to try to throw them without swim baits, but I have seen times where the swim bait will get it down a little bit deeper so you can fish it a little slower next to those logs. And for that, guys, I'm just going to use a white Tackle HD swimmer. Got a bunch of packs of these up here. They're great for trailing my spinner baits and stuff. Not a big profile, pretty slender profile, but they give that little kick that gives a lifelike action on the back of that spinnerbait. I think that's all you need. Nothing too fancy there on trailing the spinnerbait. I was taught doing some crankbait fishing. You get up there, say this is kind of towards the middle to the end of the warm-up. That water's 46 to 50 to 55. We're going to talk about pulling a square bill crankbait out. By the time the water's 55, we're normally full-blown springtime by then. But when it first warms up, some days the fish are looking for a moving bait. The spinnerbait doesn't get down deep enough to them. It stays up too high for them. So that's when I'm going to go to a square bill crankbait. I'm either going to throw red or I'm going to throw chartreuse and black because usually the water's pretty stained. So I always like chartreuse and black. That's a go-to for me. Tackle HD's got the 2-packs. Great little crankbaits for the 2-packs. Chartreuse and black. I'm going to throw those around the logs, around the stumps and stuff you can't see. A lot of things when you're making these river runs, it may not look like there's a ton of cover on the bank, but there's always something down the bank. There's always blown up trees, old limbs, bigger rock. There's something to fish on almost every bank when you go up the river. A lot of trashier stuff, a lot more shallow water, a lot of power fishing. Got to have a square bill tied on for something like that. I'm going to throw on, 12 to 15 pound line and just a regular 7 medium crankbait rod. Really like to throw the square bill. I've seen days when they get to chewing. This is a lot more of a rock deal. It seems like, hitting the stumps and letting it pause. That's kind of a fall deal. They seem to get on the rock. If you want to crank the rocks right on the outside of the point to right on the inside of the point, see if you can pick up a better fish and pick up your jig and spinnerbait and get back to work. But still got to have a square bill tied on. I've seen days it really plays, so it doesn't hurt to have a square bill tied on in the springtime. We're getting ready to go to the Navy Onyx map, showing you places I like to fish way up rivers, on my home lakes around here. We're going to try to target a lot of that last bit of the bluff end, headed into some of those shallow water pockets. That's where these bass are kind of going to set up when you first get this warm up. And when I'm talking, guys, you don't need much of a warm up. You just need that water to go from its coldest point and start to warm. As soon as it hits that 40 degrees or so, there's going to be bass biting on your lake doing this. So unless the water's blown out, take you a venture this time. Go up, go look at the river run stuff. It's always fun for me. We got forward facing sonar. We can do jerk baits, A-rigs, all that stuff, like cover juggle, all that stuff out in the middle of the pocket. But to me, it's going to be way more fun to go up and do some shallow water power fishing up in the dirty water. That's how I was raised to fish. That's how I learned to fish. So it's always fun for me, and I go do it every single year, even if it's just for fun. It really clears my head and gets me back to loving fishing again. So now we're going to go to the Navy Onyx map, and we're going to show you all where we're going to try to target, throwing the jig, the spinnerbait, and the crankbait way up the river. All right, everyone, we talked about the baits we're going to use when we make a river run. Now let's show you where we're going to fish. This is Stockton Lake, my home lake here in Missouri. You're going to want to run way up these major creek arms or river arms. This is up towards CC here. Lots of good fishing up towards CC. I like running up and fishing any of these little flat, small pockets. They're going to warm up very fast. When you get a lot of sunshine, when you get that first spring warm up, these pockets are going to be up to 12 degrees warmer than the main lake itself. So you kind of got to watch your navigational paths getting up here. It can be a little bit sketchy, but as soon as you run up there, you may idle at first if you're very unsure. I've ran it enough times now. I can run it on pad pretty easy, but you're going to go in out of these little pockets, flipping, throwing that spinnerbait, flipping that jig, doing the things we talked about earlier, and you should be able to find some success in these pockets. Now let's go to a different lake. Here's Palm de Terre Lake, another great example. Way up the Lindley Arm. You got a bunch of these smaller pockets. Anywhere that water is going to be dirty, that's Haverstick. You can even get up here on the corner. This little pocket can be good. It goes past where the map shows here, guys. Getting way up in the Lindley River when it gets high can be really good. Up the Pomme de Terre River can be good. You know, guys, here's Lightfoot, Twin Coves. All right. As soon as we get in the mouth of this river, you're going to notice it gets really, really flat. Caught a lot of fish on this flat bank over here, going into these little side pockets. This water is just going to warm up faster. It's going to get more water runoff from the river. It's going to get more stain to it, which in turn, when the sun shines, it's going to get warmer. Blown out chocolate milk's not what you're looking for, but if you can get a consistent stain to the water, that's exactly what you're looking for to go fish the way we talked about with the jig and the spinnerbait. In these shallow pockets, or even just along this main river channel, as long as you ain't got much current, they'll set up along this main channel to move into these pockets to spawn. Let's take a look at one more lake. Let's slide out. Let's go look at Table Rock Lake. All right, we're on Table Rock Lake now, and we're going to go up the Kings River. Show you what's something I would look for up the Kings River. If I'm going up the Kings River, I like fishing up the Kings. Lots of good fishing up the Kings. It's got a lot bigger, longer creeks. Hard to find the smaller pockets, but I would start somewhere in this region here. You know, someplace where these pockets small enough, they're really, really shallow. They're going to get warm really, really fast. Any of these small little pockets, say the fish just got to move right off the river channel, slide in these little pockets. And even if the river gets to flowing really fast and it gets really muddy, some of the backs of these pockets will clean up before the main river does. The water will flush out. So sometimes you can even get in the very dead backs of these little pockets and catch some fish. But we're going to keep it pretty simple. We're not going to get too complicated with it. We're going to keep that jig and that spinnerbait in our hand, and we're just going to fish these high percentage areas where the water's warming up the fastest and these fish are moving to. In these little pockets, saying you get in these little pockets, guys, just fish everything. Fish the point, fish it all the way to the back, and then turn around and fish up the other bank. You're going to find some productive water somewhere in there. I have seen where if there's not much current and the water's warming, they'll set up around the outside little section, the main river section going into these pockets, so that's something to check too. Out of all the baits we talked about in the river run, they all have their specific time and place. You know, as the water's warming more, move to your faster moving baits, spinner baits, square bills, and that water's first warming up, go with the jig. You know, it's just kind of a conditions deal, guys. You catch nasty windy day, spinner bait's always going to work a little bit better. You catch a slick sunny day, you know, throw the jig. So very conditional, but the water's so dirty sometimes. I've caught them on the spinner bait dead slick, calm. They're just up there, they're feeding. So you really got to try to practice some things when you're going up the river. You can't just always be, oh, they're going to bite the jig, or oh, they're going to bite the spinnerbait. Keep 3 or 4 rods on your deck. Keep some different colors mixed up, and you're going to find success making a river run in the springtime.